What if the oldest, most foundational legal contract in human history, one that you were likely explicitly told was shredded or canceled or replaced centuries ago, is actually still fully active? Today, we are conducting a strict system audit on a specific theological assumption, the widely accepted idea that the New Testament effectively deletes and replaces the Old Testament. To test this, we are deploying a 13-point master charter. This methodology does not treat ancient scriptures as vague, mystical poetry. It treats them as a highly sensitive, rigid piece of legal software. Our operational instructions are simple. We will bypass modern religious assumptions and dive directly into original Hebrew and Greek syntax to locate specific legal notification clauses. If the historical and linguistic data from these texts holds up to this scrutiny, the architectural blueprint of Western religion has been completely misread by modern commentators. The primary diagnostic tool for this audit is Rule 1, Ontological Immutability. In legal terms, this dictates that the Creator's core definitions of good, evil, and purity are entirely static. They do not adapt. A common modern argument asserts that as human society matured, the ancient rules evolved to fit the times. In a strict software framework, this creates an irreconcilable contradiction in the document's code. To understand the system, you must separate the constant from the variable. The constant is the Creator's nature, the unyielding standard resisting all human chaos. The constant is the what, the actual moral baseline. The variable in this covenantal equation is the human administration. The variable dictates the how humans interact, where a physical temple is located, or how a ritual is processed. If an interpretation requires the Creator to declare a behavior an inherent abomination in 1400 BCE, but perfectly acceptable centuries later, that interpretation logically disqualifies itself by violating immutability. Modern culture treats righteousness as an internal feeling or an abstract spiritual vibe, a concept heavily influenced by Greco-Roman philosophy. But the ancient Near East operated strictly on legal reality. We strip away the abstraction by checking the source code itself. Psalm 119 provides a rigid mathematical equation. For all thy commandments are righteousness. Mitzvah equals Tzedakah. You cannot have one without the other. When the New Testament says, seek his righteousness, it issues a jurisdictional directive, requiring compliance with the established law. This creates a chronological paradox. Moses received the physical stone tablets at Mount Sinai. How did figures like Abraham or Noah possess a moral compass centuries before those tablets existed? Genesis records the Creator commanding Noah to separate clean beasts from unclean beasts before the flood. Noah does not ask for definitions. He executes the instruction perfectly, proving the parameters of clean and unclean were already established. The dietary and sacrificial laws were fully operational globally long before the nation of Israel existed. The Torah is an eternal operating standard, not a localized tribal treaty. We can run a precision analysis on this pre-Sinai standard by examining the cultic data in the Genesis account of Cain and Abel. Abel brought the firstlings of his flock and the fat thereof. The Hebrew word for fat, kelev, is exclusively reserved for the Creator in Leviticus. Abel followed legal protocol. Cain brought vegetation. Analytically, this is the archetype of Esh Zara. Esh Zara translates to strange fire. In biblical jurisprudence, strange fire has nothing to do with mysticism. It indicates an unauthorized foreign deviation from the divine protocol. A common defense for Cain relies on his occupation. He was a farmer, so he brought what he grew. This completely ignores the economic realities of an agrarian society. Cain and Abel operated in a symbiotic economy. Cain held the agricultural currency to easily trade a basket of crops for a designated lamb. He refused the authorized transaction entirely out of pride. He attempted to bypass the system and approach the jurisdiction on his own terms. Substituting human convenience for divine protocol registers as a fatal system error. This brings us to the dietary laws. Modern commentators frequently claim these food restrictions were designed strictly as sociological fences to keep the ancient Israelites from intermarrying with pagan neighbors. We can cross-examine that claim against the legislative source code. Exodus 34 formally lists the tactical tools the Israelites must use to prevent intermarriage, destroying altars, breaking images. The dietary laws are completely absent from this legal clause. Historical data confirms this. Daniel records Jewish exiles living in the royal court of Babylon, the epicenter of Gentile pagan society. Daniel and his companions maintained the strict food laws, yet they advised the king and functioned at the absolute highest levels of Babylonian politics. The diet did not mandate social isolation. The later cultural rule forbidding a Jew from entering a Gentile's house was an oral tradition, a rabbinic takana. It was a humanly engineered fence built during Roman occupation, completely separate from divine law. Leviticus 11 provides the actual reason for the food laws. Be holy, for I am holy. The Hebrew text classifies the unclean animals as shekets, an abomination. This is a matter of ontological purity, rooted in the biological design of the animal itself. A pig does not biologically transform from an abomination into clean food, simply because human sociology evolves. Using cultural shifts to discard biological purity laws fails the immutability stress test. If the definitions of the law remain completely unchanged, why is the Christian contract called the New Covenant? Jeremiah 31 prophesies this covenant using the Hebrew word kadash, meaning to rebuild or renew, like the phases of the moon entering a renewed cycle. Greek translators later rejected neos, meaning newly manufactured, and explicitly chose kainos, meaning refurbished or renewing quality. This deliberate linguistic choice signals a legal novation. It is an upgrade to the internal mechanics of the existing contract, not a replacement. We see this exact legal continuity in Colossians 2. When the text describes the Sabbath and dietary laws as a shadow of things to come, the Greek verb used is esti. It is present tense, active, and indicative. The shadow is actively projecting right now. A shadow cannot exist independently. It is a two-dimensional projection, inextricably linked to the three-dimensional reality casting it, the substance of the Messiah. The shadow protocol operates as a perimeter check. A physical substance cannot cast a shadow that contradicts its own ontological shape. If a historical figure arrives claiming to be the Messiah, while simultaneously abolishing the dietary laws and Sabbaths that form his own prophetic outline, the architecture of the text legally disqualifies him as an impostor. To understand the administrative changes that did occur, we apply the principle of legal transparency. In the audit's framework, any significant shift in constitutional administration requires a prior notification clause published by the prophets. The administrative shifts we do observe, the transition away from animal sacrifices, and the return from the temporary Levitical priesthood to the original Melchizedekian order, were all meticulously documented centuries in advance by the prophets. The external system at Sinai, defined by animal rituals and cold stone tablets, operated as a temporary placeholder until the final hardware arrived. But an audit of the prophets yields 0 notification clauses abolishing the core moral instructions or the definitions of clean and unclean. When biblical prophets express deep frustration with the sacrificial system, they act as system debuggers. They are diagnosing a systemic disconnect in the human hardware. The nation of Israel was mechanically performing the rituals of the law while operating with a totally dead, disconnected heart. The failure was the performance metric, not the law itself. The definitive legal upgrade is published in Ezekiel 36. The Creator promises to put His Spirit within humanity to cause them to walk in His statutes. The Holy Spirit functions as an internal operating system. Its purpose is not to delete the ancient law. Its purpose is to finally provide the human mechanism with the capacity to execute it. The ultimate intent was the internalization of the code, moving the law from external stones directly onto the soft tissue of the human heart. This forces a final immutability stress test. The Spirit cannot logically guide a person to consume an abomination or ignore a Sabbath, because the Spirit authored those exact legal definitions. The source code remains intact. So when you witness cruelty or corruption and feel a visceral, instinctive aversion deep inside of your chest, is that simply an evolutionary survival trait? Or is it the ancient, immutable source code actively running within your soul, demanding that the world align with its true design?